Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and very excited to introduce our next guest. He's the co-host of the Catholic Crunch Catholic. I did it again. I'm just reading my own script. I'm not even really paying attention. The Crunch Catholic Comedy Podcast. He's also been featured, or will be featured, on EWTN's Catholic Sphere, and has also helped with the grassroots movement on spreading the word about the Eucharistic Congress. Ethan, good morning.
Good morning, Keith. Happy to be here.
Well, it's good to have you here. So did I say it right? The Crunch Catholic Comedy Podcast?
Crunch Catholic Crunch is, if you Google Crunch Catholic, you'll find what we're doing. It's called the Crunch Catholic Podcast. So you got all the right nouns in there, and that's the important part.
Yeah, I was just doing that all for SEO for later.
Yeah, exactly.
If someone has never listened or watched you and Patrick, maybe give us a brief synopsis of what you do.
Absolutely. So we started this podcast back in 2016. So we are 7, almost 8-year veterans of the podcasting medium. And we started it because we were college students at the time, and we saw that there weren't really any podcasts being made for the young, casual Catholic. There were a lot of very intense spiritual and theological podcasts, but nothing that was really on the lighter side. And so that's what we decided to do. So we have a pretty heavy focus on comedy, making each other laugh, and then also exploring the realities from when we started, when we were in college, to now we're both married and we have kids. And so it's a whole new side of life, but we try to keep the comedy and stay as relatable as possible to people. So that's what we've been doing, and we love doing it.
Yeah, and that's the thing that attracted me to your podcast, was that obviously it's, when you do talk about the Catholic faith, it's very orthodox, but you also have joy. And I think that's was a missing element in kind of the podcasting realm of Catholic entertainment, or if you will, podcasting. I also like how you have a dating component, like a date, almost like
There's this through line that runs through. We talk about the dating and the community and some of the other things, but a lot of our orientation is towards the real. We love the online, we love the internet community. There's a lot that can be done through the internet, but at the end of the day, you got to ambulate with your body out in the world. You got to talk to people, you got to interact, to get around. And dating is this critical component where a lot of young people, especially after the COVID pandemic, are struggling in their romantic relationships because so much of their life is online, and they lack this ability to do some of the basic fundamentals. And so it's really we have a weekly show that we do in addition to our main show called Dr. Ethan's Dating Corner. Self-imposed doctorate on myself because of my vast experience. But people write in questions, and they say, they have questions about, I'm in this situation with this girl, or this guy said this, what does this mean? And Patrick and I are able to kind of, from a removed perspective, break it down and usually give advice that's very, very simple. But sometimes that's all that it takes to get people over the mental hurdles in their mind when it comes to dating. So we love Dr. Ethan's Dating Corner.
Yeah, that's the thing too. When I've listened to the show, it's like some questions that are like, well, oh, come on. And you even kind of jest like, are you kidding me? Like, you shouldn't be doing this. And then there's sometimes where you actually do give some solid advice. So that's
thank
really
you for
cool.
that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we recently had a question where someone was wondering if this person liked them. She was in college, and there was this guy that she had been flirting with, and she thought that, he was going to ask her out. And then all of a sudden, he brings another girl around the Catholic Center, and he's flirting with her. And so she's like, well, what the heck? So she sent her friend and her mailman and her dog and everybody except herself to go and try and figure out the solution. But we said, how about you just go and talk to him and see what's going on? And a lot of times people can see every solution except the one that is the best thing for them, including myself. So it's pretty fun.
That's wild. So you kind of already mentioned that pressing issue of dating. What are some of the other pressing issues facing young Catholics today that you sometimes will address on?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion and a lot of frustration that young Catholics are facing because it's the most connected generation of all time. They're probably the most media saturated generation of all time. I'm 27, so I'm talking about people that are kind of in their early 30s, mid to late 20s. That's kind of the where we grew up. So we've had the internet our whole lives. It's and what the problem is that people are getting so much information on a daily basis, and all of it is conflicting, and it's very difficult to sort through the noise from things like, oh, is doing this particular thing a sin or is it not a sin? Or is it a sin if I do it in this way? Or the dating and the relationship things, or, oh, I don't have any friends. Or like people are so inundated with stuff and information that they don't, that it paralyzes them and they don't know which direction to go in their life. And I think that is the hardest thing is we see people not making any concrete decisions about what to do or where to go or how to live. And so you end up with people that prolong their time of adolescence, that prolong their time of singleness because they're afraid to commit to a married relationship. They're afraid to commit to a career. They're afraid to commit to a place to live. They're afraid to commit to friends and real life community because all of those things have risk. And we're such a risk averse generation. For whatever reason, there's even studies about this, about how fewer and fewer people in Gen Z are drinking alcohol, are doing drugs, which is a good thing, but it's indicative of a larger trend of less and less risky behaviors over the period of time. And so that's kind of what we're addressing is you just have to, I mean, to choose Christ is a choice, and that's a risk in and of itself. And so by putting off all of these other choices, ultimately people are putting off choosing to live the Christian life. And I think a lot of what we talk about in terms of, I mean, everything from finances to working properly to prayer and having good structures in your life and friends and family and community and evangelization, all these things that we address every single week, I think are all kind of circled around this need that people have to make a real choice in their life.
It struck me when you said that this is like the most connected bunch of Catholics, and that struck me because like, yeah, they're always connected to their phone, and even I am at one point. Which kind of leads me to my next question. You and Patrick have created a toolkit for Catholics.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us more about this toolkit for Catholics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the toolkit because it's a natural extension of what we do. So we're on Instagram and we have a lot of fun on Instagram, but what we notice is that as we grew on Instagram, you can follow us at the Crunchcast if you want to check that out on Instagram. But we do a lot of fun videos, a lot of comedic videos. And so people were hanging out, we're joking around, but naturally we're talking about Catholic things and the Catholic life from our perspective. And when the algorithm picks up these videos, it gets shown to a lot of Protestants. And they see the video and then they start arguing, and then the Catholics that follow start arguing with the Protestants, and it turns into this whole thing. And we noticed that there were a lot of people requesting the same types of arguments to be addressed over and over again, either for themselves because they were Protestant and they wanted those arguments addressed, or for maybe their mom was struggling and they had converted, or maybe their child they had someone in their life, a friend, a family member, who was struggling with some key aspects of the Catholic faith. And so what we did is we compiled all of those responses and we said, what's the most basic and succinct thing that we can give people to get them started? Because I mean, Catholic Answers is a big website. They do a lot of good stuff for there, but some people don't know how to navigate it, right? I'm not saying we're the new Catholic Answers, but the way that the internet works now is that it's much more influencer driven. And so people are much more likely to listen to us than to listen to some big institution. And so taking a lot of inspiration from those guys, we made this PDF, which has 9 distinct points sectioned into groups of 3. So essentially the first 3 points prove that God exists. The second 3 points prove that Jesus is God. And the final 3 points prove that Jesus founded the Catholic Church. And it's just a logical step-by-step. It's all one coherent logical system. So you don't need any extraneous information to go from point 1 to point 9. And so it's very easy to sit down with a friend of yours and say, where on this do you start to struggle? Because if you believe that God exists, great. Do you really believe that Jesus is God? No? Okay, well, let's talk about point 6 here, or let's talk about point 5 here. So you can walk through that. So that's available on our website. You can go to thecrunchcast.com/toolkit. You can download it. It's absolutely free. Because we want as many people to have it as possible. So you can go in and you can download it for free. And we've included a mock conversation. So I pretended to be a Baptist, and my buddy Patrick was a Catholic using the toolkit, and we kind of showed how one might use the toolkit. So that was a ton of fun to put together, and we've seen a lot of people download it and have really good experiences with it so far.
That's awesome. Yeah, Catholic Answers is wonderful. It's superb, but
great.
yeah, you can kind of get lost in the weeds. So this is nice that it's like starting from square one, simple, perfect, convince your friends. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. So just a couple questions, just because the themes of this show had been more about Lent and confession. What are you doing for Lent?
Oh man, Keith, I've thought I would be lying if I said that I hadn't thought about it, but I'd also be lying if I said that I had thought about it very seriously and for long periods of time. And so I've done the whole gamut. Last year we had a 3-month-old for Lent, and so that was my penance, was getting 0 sleep for 40 days. And so I really struggled to take on any additional penances just because the fabric of our life was different. And I've also done Exodus 90 in the past, where I did the whole shebang. And so that's an official church term, by the way. You can find that in the catechism, the whole shebang. But this year I think I'm going to go pretty middle of the road, right? No sweets, no alcohol, fasting, from food on Fridays. And then trying to have some restrictions around screen time, at night and in the morning. That's where I've started. I'd like to read more, but I don't have a specific, how it is. You go into Lent, you're like, I'm going to read a book. Maybe I should enter your contest and see if I can win the drawing. I think I have an answer, but I don't want to say it on air. So
that's
I'll
okay.
keep it to myself.
You can just go to grnonline.com/joy to fill it in there. So no biggie on that. Lastly, any tips for individuals going to confession? Because we were kind of sharing our stories with confession, like some funny, some really inspirational. So I figured to ask you.
The thing I always think about is that the priest doesn't care about me. He's got 50,000 other things on his mind. I mean, he cares, but he's got 10 people before him, 10 people after him, and he has to go to mass. So I say what's on my heart, and I trust that he's not thinking about me more than a second after I leave, and that helps me always have a good confession.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Ethan Stueve from the Crunch Catholic Comedy Podcast. If you're more than welcome to stay after to the after show clubhouse, Ethan. We're talking about all sorts of things. So I invite you, the listener, to join us as well on YouTube. But if not, have a great time at Mass listening to Mass, and we'll see you on the other side of this.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.